So I'm excited about this series, this new RTD series. So a lot of times when it's a relationship series, we get a lot of new people. So as you guys know, this portion of our service is called RTD, and it stands for the road to Damascus. The road to Damascus. So if you guys read the book of Acts chapter 9, St. Paul was on his way on the road to Damascus. He was on his road to do something bad, to persecute Christians. But it was on the road to Damascus that he encounters Christ, and his life was transformed. So that's what we call this portion of our service RTD, that the more RTD series that we come, the more RTD sermons that we actually listen to and actually do, that our life will be transformed the same way that St. Paul, on the road to Damascus, he encountered Christ, and his life was transformed. And no better way than our life to be transformed than relationships. We all love to talk about relationships. I think Siyun was saying that earlier when we were talking about relationships. We used to do relationships here at least once a year, and it's been 2 years, and we haven't had a relationship series. But anytime we've had a relationship series, people loved to come and he would sit on the floor. We had life groups, and my wife and I actually hosted the last life group, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago. And people were at our house until like midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., talking about relationships. We all love to talk about relationships, so I'm excited for this series, and we're going to have fun. We're going to have a good time. But just to kind of get an idea of who we have in the room, all right? Who here is married and proud? Raise your hands. Raise it like you're proud. Say, I'm married and I'm proud. There you go. All right. Who here is engaged? Any engaged people? They're clapping for you. Anybody that's engaged? I know one. Oh, there goes one. Okay, there's one person that's engaged. Awesome. All right. Who here is dating? This is where it gets confusing. Do I want to tell people I'm dating? Okay, we got one bold person over here. We got a couple guys raising their hands. All right. Who's single and proud? Like, I'm single and I'm proud. Y'all raising your hand way too high, all right? Okay. I'm not single, I'm married. I'm just kind of trying to get people to raise their hands. Who's single and looking? None of the single people raise their hands. All right, look at all the guys. Nobody on the women's side raised their hands. Nobody's looking. We got a problem. All right, so, actually I forgot something. I have a confession before I start. I have a confession. So, I have a problem. I don't know how to say this. I'm very cheap when it comes to money. My wife tells me I'm cheap. I'm very frugal. I hate spending money on unnecessary things. Give you guys a prime example, and you would agree with me. Maybe the guys will agree with me. Graduation gifts, right? I hate buying the card. Why pay $7 when the graduates, they're not even going to read the card. They just want the money. My theory, sell them the money, like Cash App, that's all they want. They don't want to read, your thank you, congrats on your graduation. Like, nobody wants to read that. I hate spending unnecessary money. So that has been my thing. I like to hold on to money. I don't like to give it out. As a guy, like we're sometimes could be a little extreme. So one of my, I've confessed about this, and one of the things my confession father told me was, he gave me 2 months, and he said, you have to give a certain amount. I don't want to disclose how much. He said, just give it to random people. Whether you buy somebody, like at a drive-through, just give money. So I was like, I'm starting a new RTD series. So for those of you guys that were here during the break, I went around where you're sitting, maybe, and I put 5 envelopes. Don't start looking yet. I put 5 envelopes under the chairs, and each of them have $100. If you see it, it's yours. You can look under your chair, the empty chair. It might be on an empty chair. If you find it, it's yours to keep. And I'll give everybody 30 seconds. It's a white envelope. Anybody find any? No one? All right, so that was a lie. That was completely a lie, and I'm sorry that I lied to you. But it proves the point. What you believe shapes how you live. What you believe shapes how you live, even if it's a lie. I set up a good thing, I lied to you guys, believe me, we're in church and everybody think they got a $100 bill. We have people on on all fours looking under different chairs, like moving around. Like, we acted based on what we believed. Same thing is true in our lives. When you think about Adam and Eve, the Satan, devil, comes to Eve, whispers a lie in her ears. As a result of that lie, death came into this world. Evil came into this world. When you think about Judas, it said Satan entered his heart. He was fed a lie, and he betrayed Christ. Same thing when it comes to our relationships. We've all believed in some type of lie. We've all believed in a lie, whether it's from family, whether it's culture, whatever it is. We've had a lot of misconceptions when it comes to relationships, when it comes to dating, when it comes to what my expectation is as a married person, as a husband, and as a wife. So, with that being said, our main verse for this whole series comes from the book of Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. And God said, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. My people, my children, are destroyed for the lack of knowledge." When we don't understand God's design for marriage, when we don't understand God's way of what it means to be in a relationship, what dating looks like, we are destroyed. The series is called Love Lies, because we've been told lies when it comes to these different seasons of our life. So whether you're single, whether you're dating, whether you're in a relationship or a situationship, whatever you want to call it, or even married, let's clear whatever misconceptions that we may have, whatever that we don't understand. Because when we don't, the consequences, the people, the way we are destroyed is that we lose our identity. We get into a relationship. Now we tell somebody who I am. We get into a relationship prematurely before I'm ready. And now we have somebody else defining who I am. We get into a relationship prematurely and causes trauma from a dating experience because you should have never dated that boy or that girl. From a bad breakup because we didn't know how to break up with people. That causes trauma. Families that are destroyed. Homes that are destroyed. A child that grows up with the presence of his father. A child that grows up without the presence of his or her mother because of a bad relationship that started. I have a friend. He's near 40 years old. He grew up without his dad. Till this day, it impacts his life. It impacts his decision. I had a conversation. He's still crying that the fact that his dad was never around. 40 years old. Why? Because of what we decided when we were in our 20s or our 30s. I'm young, I could do this. Then you have a kid, and you're never there, and the trauma that it causes on that child. So we're going to unpack the lies and the myth when it comes to relationship. And I always say this, parents that are married, maybe this series is not for me, and I said this last week. Your kids, our children, they're going to have questions when it comes to dating, when it comes to a relationship. When can I date? They're going to ask questions about sex. Are we ready to have that conversation? Or do we just tell them, don't date, don't have sex? And as soon as they graduate, where are the kids? When are you getting married? We want to avoid these situations. It's hard to talk to a child about sex. They probably don't want it as much as you don't want it. But if we don't talk to them as a parent, somebody else will. And most likely, that would be the lie, the misconception, because the world is telling them versus what the church is telling them. So the question for me, or for you guys, that I have for you guys is, who defines what marriage should look like? Who defines what marriage should look like? Who defines what a relationship is supposed to look like? What defines me as a husband? What is my role? Who defines that for me? Who defines the role of the wife? It seems easy to go with what we see outside of the church. what we see from our friends, and sometimes even from our parents. We see my parents doing this. I see my mom, my dad. We think that is the right way. It's not always the right way. Last week, our father, as he stopped by, he talked about reality shows, and it kind of sparked my interest about reality shows. And there was a post that I saw from somebody here that I was like, okay, maybe let me look into it. Did you know there are over 100 dating reality shows? Over 100 dating reality shows. And I'll name some of them. The Bachelor, Love Island, Love is Blind, Married at First Sight, my favorite one, Too Hot to Handle. There's one that actually started in Ethiopia, which, again, I live under the rock. I have no idea about these names, but, my wife tells me I live under the rock. There's one that started in Ethiopia. It's called, there's probably an accent to it, Lady Looking for Love. 600,000 views. That's more views than the sermons that we have here. But supposedly this show gets 600, it started in Ethiopia. What do you think the success rate is for these shows? The people that go on these shows, these reality shows, to look for love, to look for marriage. The Bachelorette, right, it has 26 seasons. Only 4 are still married. The success rate is 16%. 16%, but it has 26 seasons. What does that tell us? They don't care whether you get married or not. It's about the views. That's how they get money. And we are the product of their views. That is what we consume our minds with. We look at those and we think that's a relationship. But I know most of us, we watch it for pure entertainment, right? It's just entertainment. It's just something that I like to see. I believe in the opposite. You become what you eat. If we eat fast food every day, what do you think we're going to become? Most of us. They know there's an exception. There's a group of people that can eat whatever they want and never work out and be the most skinniest person. But most of us, if we eat unhealthy food, our health is going to have issues. We're going to get bigger. Our clothes are not going to fit. Same thing when we consume our mind with things that doesn't align with the teachings of the church. These reality shows, what do they portray? What do they teach us? That having multiple partners at once is okay. There's nothing wrong because that's what we see. That's what we consume with our minds. They normalize sexual intimacy before the marriage. So we get into a relationship and we think that's okay because I've seen 26 seasons of this. Casual sexual behavior is okay because that's what we consume our minds with. We get into a relationship and we think that is okay. It sets unrealistic expectation of how to love somebody. It sets an expectation of how to deal with conflict because of what we see or what we consume our minds. It's easier to believe the lies, but we need to understand the truth. Because God, He is the designer of marriage. He is the designer of the relationship, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. He wants us to have a relationship. He designed it. He designed marriage from the first book of the Bible. So it's up to the church. It's up to us here in the church to define what that looks like. Not what we consume our minds with for entertainment. It will look different than your friends. It will look very different from maybe what you saw in your parents. But it's up to the church to define what that looks like, a relationship. I personally think, I wanted to do a 12-week series on this. And that's not even enough. But I want to stay married. So we're just doing 5 weeks. So for the next 5 weeks, we're going to look at a lie each week, and we're going to see what God has to say about that lie. So let's jump into today's lie. Earlier this week, I had a coworker. He came and he was talking to me, and he was struggling with his marriage. And he said, he talked about what he struggled with, what they're going through. And I asked him a question. And I want to ask you this question. Is a good and healthy marriage possible? If you say yes, let me show of hands. Is a good and healthy relationship, is it possible? Who says it's not possible? I'm going to make a statement, but bear with me. The statement is, a healthy marriage is possible, but it's not likely. A healthy marriage is possible, but it's very, very, very unlikely. Healthy marriage is possible because it's designed by God. What God designed is good. Marriage is good. It is possible through the grace of God, but it's unlikely. It's unlikely to have a healthy marriage. Why? The current divorce rate in the U.S. is almost 45%. That's almost 50% of marriages that fail. So is a good and healthy relationship possible? According to that, it's not. It's a failure. It's 45%. Only 55% of marriages succeed, according to the stat. So yes, it's possible 55% of the time. But I know haven't been in school in a while, but that's a failure. That's an F. You bring something that's 55%, that's an F. So good and healthy marriage is possible, but it's very, very unlikely because of the stat. As you guys know, there was a CEO that was recently caught up in whatever show, concert, right? Everybody, I live under the rock and I know this, all right? So I'm assuming you guys are probably aware of what happened. People saw that. That is sad of what happened. But you know what frustrates me? Is the many pages that are now portraying or reenacting that image, that whatever is seen, for like a promotion. I saw a party training, like, I have a daughter, so I used to follow a page about how to get her to train and use the restroom. A party training page, like, using that, reenacting that. The worst thing, there was a church that reenacted that scene and said, when you get caught eating like meat on Wednesdays and Fridays. They thought that was funny. It's sad. That is not something for us to make fun of. Kids are involved. How many kids, their kids now have to see that? That's how they witness their father. That is the trauma that is caused by seeing that image. But now every page is reenacting that image. How do you think those kids are being affected? But it's funny. It gets the views. That's what we want. And it frustrates me when kids are involved, and that is what we do. Who pray for the kids that are affected by that? The family, the wife that had to witness that. The trauma that is caused. It's not something for us to laugh about. Healthy marriage is possible, but it takes a lot of work. I won't say a show of hands. Because I guarantee, like Charles Barkley would say, I guarantee that all of us will raise our hands if I ask, how many of us know somebody in our family that is divorced? We will all raise our hands. You don't have to raise your hands, but I guarantee each of us will raise our hands. Healthy marriage is possible, but it's unlikely. It's a 55% rate of a success rate. If I come to you and I say, I'm very generous, I'm giving out money, right? This is true. No, I'm not giving out money. But if I say, I'm going to pay for your trip, and I will pay for everything, your hotel, your flights, I'll pay for it. But there's a 45% chance that plane will crash. Will you get on that plane? If I ask you to give me all your money, I will invest it. I'm a great investor. But there's a 45% chance that you might lose all your money. Will you give me your money? So if we don't accept that in our life, we would not accept marriage failing at 45%. We don't accept any failure in our life. Marriage should not be any different. So I believe, starting with today, if we do these things, if we follow God's formula, maybe how God designed marriage to be, relationship, how to love somebody, maybe that number will change. It starts with me. It starts with us individually. This sermon isn't for, I'm going to send this to somebody, but it's a reflection of who I am. A lot of times we hear something and we try to get somebody else to do it. But if each of us in our household do what we're supposed to do, I think the number could change. So the first lie that we're going to talk about is singleness equals loneliness. Singleness equals loneliness. We've all heard that before. Being single means you're alone. If you're single in your late 20s or early 30s, oh my God, life is over, right? I'm a failure. I'm not enough. The lie that single means I'm alone. Parents, people inside the church that look at people in their late 20s, early 30s, and it's like, you have to get into a relationship. You have to have a child by this magical date, like it's up to us. We teach people that your time, like we don't even care that who they are, what they're doing. All we care about is them getting into the next relationship. The result, when we tell people, when we put this pressure, is that I'm not enough. I'm a failure because I'm single. Is singleness equate to like being a failure? I don't know when this started, but I've heard it more and more and more, where people feel like if you see a single person, they're not single, they're not dating, they're in their 30s, oh my God, it's like the world is ending. Is single, like being a single person, is that a failure? St. Paul, our patron saint, he was single. Would we ever say that he was a failure? That he failed in life because he was single? He actually encourages singleness. He said in the 1 Corinthians, he said, be as I am, single. He's the same person that said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. Christ was single. I don't know when this lie started, that singleness equates to being lonely. It equates to somebody, they're a failure. They're in their mid-30s, they're still single. Oh my God, their life is over. Guys, I think we're okay, but when it comes to female, we give women a hard time when it comes to this department, when they're single. It's a lie. So what is the true statement? The true statement is singleness is a gift, and every gift has a purpose and a season. Singleness is a gift from God, and it has a purpose and it has a season. The problem, why we have a 45% divorce rate, not enough of us spend time in our singleness. We want to skip that phase. We want to get to a relationship because everybody else is doing it. We want to get to marriage because that will solve all my problems. We don't open the gift that God has given us in our singleness. I would go on to say the most important time of your life is not marriage. Is your time as in your single days. It's more important to be single, like your time, your season in your singleness, than your time in marriage. Think of it this way. When you build a house, right? When you build a house, first thing you do, I've never built a house, but I did some research, is the foundation. You have to make sure your foundation is right. The concrete that nobody sees, the footers that are under the ground that nobody will ever see. That is the most important part of that house. A lot of us, what we want to see is the kitchen, the glamorous kitchen. Or it's the bathroom, or the walk-in closets. Those are the fancy things that we pay attention to. But if your foundation is not right, it doesn't matter how fancy your walk-in closets are, how fancy your bathrooms may be, or your kitchen, or whatever it is. Same is true when it comes to relationship. Like the footers, the underground, the foundation, the concrete, it's not glamorous. It's not pretty. But without that, that things that nobody sees, the work that you're putting in, if you don't do that, it doesn't matter when you get into a relationship. You may feel like you're alone, but you're not. You're building the foundation. You're building a better you. And I truly believe there is no such thing as a marriage problem. There's no such thing as a marriage problem. And we'll get to marriage about week 4 or 5. But I truly believe there are people with problems that do get married. People with problems that were never addressed in their singleness, and they decide to get married and think, he can fix my problem. She can fix my problem. Most of us, most people, neglect this season of our life and our singleness where we don't work on ourselves. We neglect working on ourselves. We neglect dealing with the trauma experience that we have, our insecurities, our low self-esteem. And we carry this problem into our marriage, which is why we have a 45% failure rate when it comes to marriage. Don't ever say the high divorce rate is because of marriage. Marriage is beautiful. I'm happily married for 8 years. It's beautiful. Marriage is not the problem. God created marriage. Is that the problem? The main problem is the lies that we've been told. Not many of us spend enough time in our singleness. So, now that we understand the importance of singleness, we're going to read God's formula of what it means to love. And I think I've missed this step a lot of times. Singleness is by far the most important time of your life, more important than your time in marriage. So in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 22, one of the Pharisees go to Christ and they ask him a question. And this is after he teaches the parable about the wedding garment or the wedding banquet. So they ask him a question. And we pick up the story in verse 36. And the Pharisee said, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. So his first formula of love, the greatest commandment is what? It's to love God. Love me. And that's what God said. But it keeps going. And the second is like it. The second is like it. He said, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. This is where we get confused. A Pharisee came and he asked a question. And Christ said, first, love God. And he said, second. But when he said second, it's not just two. There's one that we always miss. He said, love your neighbor as yourself. Loving your neighbor, loving others is conditional based on loving myself first. So there's actually three for God's formula. Love God, love me, myself, and then I could love others. For me to love others, I have to love myself. It's a conditional. Just like when we pray our Father, he said, forgive me as I forgive others. I have to forgive others before God forgives me. According to God's word, his commandment is love God, love myself, and then I can learn to love others. But we love God and we want to go to that boy and that girl. And we start loving others. So there's a formula. There's an upward, me and God. There's an inward, the work that I have to do. Once that's right, then I'm ready to love others. So our number one point today is, according to that formula, is to pursue the one before you look for the one. We always think the one is that boy, the perfect girl, the perfect boy. That's the one that I'm looking for. The one is Christ. The one is the God who died for me. Before you look for your two, look for the one who is God. That's his formula, is to love God. When God created Adam and Eve, he didn't create them together. He created Adam first. Adam learned to walk with God. He could have created Adam and Eve together. But God has a purpose. He's God. He could have. But God represents humanity. So our first job, our first commandment is to walk with God. To be okay with just being with God. Most of us, we think relationship. We think marriage is the goal. That boy is my goal. That girl is my goal. If the goal is marriage, what happens after marriage? Is your life over? Are you done? You've reached your goal? That's why I always say relationship, marriage is the destination. It's the road that leads us to salvation. Relationship is not the destination. That is not the goal. But it's the path, it's the road that leads us to salvation. Relationship is meant to use as a tool rather than the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is salvation. I am married, like my wife, that she is not my goal. Her goal is, my goal is salvation. Her goal is salvation. It's for us to help each other to walk to the kingdom of heaven. That is my point that's going to push me. But we make marriage, relationship our goal. People always ask, how do you find the one? How do you find that girl? How do you find the boy? The one is Christ. The one is God. That's our number one. If you haven't found Jesus to be your number one, if you're not okay walking alone with God, you will never be okay with having a partner with your two. You're not ready for your two. According to God's formulas, love God, love myself, and then you can love others. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, there's a parable that Christ talks about. And it's a parable about the rock, like building the foundation, your house, on the rock versus the sand. Starting at verse 24, this is what Christ said. He said, everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built the house on the rock. The person that built the house on the rock, which is Christ. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. But it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. Marriage, relationship, they're going to have problems. The rain, the wind, they're going to have problems. But most of us, when we don't build our relationship based on God, based on the rock, problems arise and we leave. That house falls. When you get into a relationship, marriage especially, you're going to have problems with financially. Kids, when the kids are involved. Communication. There's a lot of challenges that come. But Christ said, if you build your house, the foundation on me, doesn't matter what comes. Doesn't matter what the problem is. Problems will come, but the house will stand. It won't move. Why? Because you built your house on the rock. But then there's the other side. What happens if you don't? And the story continues. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built the house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house. And it fell, and great was the fall of it. So which one are we? Are we the people that build our house, our foundation on Christ? Or are we the foolish people that build it on sand? When problems arise, when challenges come, when Christ is not the number one, it will fall. According to the stat, the 45% of marriages that have fallen, to be honest, most of us, we're foolish. This is not my word. This is Christ. This is his word. We build our house on a sand. We become fools when Christ isn't our number one. True story. I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it. There was a mom. She's not here. She doesn't go here. About 3 weeks ago, she has a daughter. Her daughter is about, I want to say 28, 29-ish. And I've known them for a long time, and she just got a bad relationship. Now, her daughter is very successful. She has a great job. She has a big house. She's doing great things. But she doesn't come to church. Like, she's not a church person. She'll come when it's a major holiday, but she's not into the church. And the mom always talks, parents, they love talking about their kids. And my kid, she has a job, he has a job. Like, we like to, but I always go back. Does she come to church? So this mom came and she told me, and she just got out of a relationship. She said, can you find somebody from, I know you'll go to the church. Can you find somebody? She's successful. She has a great job. She has a great house, great car. Like, financially, she's well off. So when she asked me this question, one, I said, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not Cupid, I can't do that. But I asked her a question. I said, why do you want her to get into another relationship? She just came out of a toxic relationship that was not good for her. And she knew that. And what she said is, she's almost 30. I don't want her to be alone because she's a girl. Girls can't be like, and I'm thinking like, she just got out of a bad relationship. And I think that is our problem. We think, like, what I told, the conversation, what ended up me telling her was, she doesn't need a relationship. This is a great opportunity for you as a parent to say, your relationship has failed. You've tried doing it on your own. You were in a toxic relationship that you should have never been in. Our job is to tell her, come to Christ. Submit your life to him. Make him your number one. But we want them to get into the next relationship because girls supposedly can't be alone in their 30s. Where do we see that in the Bible? Where does God say, like, by this age, you cannot be single? It doesn't. It's a lie that we've been told. A chapter before this, Christ talks about seek first the kingdom of heaven. Seek first the kingdom of heaven. We know this. We're men and women of faith. But what do we practice? What do we tell? What advice do we give? Now, the mother, she has good intentions. I understand. But sometimes those good intentions don't align with what God is telling us. Christ said, seek first the kingdom of heaven. Seek me first, not a relationship. When we think about Adam, when we think about Eve, what effort did Adam put? He was asleep when Eve came. He did nothing. Eve woke up, and voila, there goes her husband. It's not the effort. It's not the things that we like. There's not a checklist. God said, seek me first. Seek first the kingdom of God. Love God before we get into a relationship. The problem in our society is not a relationship problem. It's a singleness problem. God encourages singleness. Like I said, St. Paul, he was single. And we always like to use the word, God never said it's not good for a man to be single. That was not what he said. He said, God said it is not good for a person to be alone. Singleness is not a problem to God. God never said it's not good for a man to be single. He said it's not good for a man to be alone. And we read that word. He said, I can't be alone. Most of us, we feel alone. God has a problem with being like isolated, on your own. But you're not alone if you're seeking Christ. You're not alone if God is in your life. Don't mistake loneliness with singleness. Two different things. God has never had a problem with singleness. Because St. Paul, imitate me. Be single as I am. There's no problem with being single. The problem is a lot of us neglect this season of our life, this chapter in our life, because of the lies. Most of us feel alone because we're not pursuing God. How often do we attend a liturgy? From the start. From the start. How often do we go confession? Have you even started a life of confession? A life of sacrament before you start chasing relationships? For those of us that actually go to confession, do we listen to the penance that our Father gives us? I've heard stories. I know people that have come to me, and I've said, so-and-so told me to do this, but I'm just going to go get another confession, Father. Sometimes we change our confession father because we don't like what he told us, because we're feeding our ego. It's what we want. My prayer, a lot of us, how often do we pray in our singleness about the relationship? Does our prayer say, give me this specific person? Or do we just pray to God? My prayer, and so before I met my wife, I was not always in the church. I did other things, but when I started to get into the church, my prayer, and I had a problem with women, but my prayer to God was, don't put a woman in my life. I want you. I want you, Christ, and that was my vision. A lot of us, when we pursue God, we ask God, give me this girl. Put her in my life. That's what I want. What does God want? We get into these bad relationships. We ask God, bless this relationship. Our problem is that we want things according to what we want. Our feelings. Our prayer, like pray in your singleness. God, I want you. That's it. Don't put a man in my life that you don't want me to be with. Don't put a woman in my life that you don't want me to be with. That should be the prayer that we're saying. If we can't submit our life to Christ, think about it. If we can't submit our life to Christ, who died for you, who gave up his life for you, who was pierced for you, who was whipped for you and I. If we can't submit our life to him, what makes you think when you get into a relationship, you can submit to your husband? You can submit to your wife. Your husband that will not have a good day. Your wife that will not have a good day because she's not God. If we don't learn to submit our life completely to God, you're not ready for your two. You're not ready for your relationship. Unfortunately, some of us, we pursue a relationship and marriage more than pursuing God, which is idolatry, which goes against the commandment of God. Our number one priority, is it relationship or is it God? We will never say that. We will never say this. But look at your life. Does your life portray that you're chasing God? Are you going from a relationship to a relationship to a relationship without focusing on yourself and God and the singleness? Are you casually dating every weekend? I'm going to see this girl Friday, that girl Thursday, that boy, I have a date with him that day. Are we focusing our life and our singleness with God? Some of us, we spend more money, more time on dating different people than the time and money that we spend in the church. What does your life look like? What does your life look like? We will never say that I'm pursuing relationship more than God. But examine your life. Examine your bank cards. And you tell me, tell God who you're pursuing. And I understand, for those of us that are married, let's be real. Sometimes God, he does take a back seat. Our kids become a priority. Our career become a priority. Or even our spouse, our wife or our husbands become a priority. God sometimes could fall to number 4 in marriage because we get busy, we get caught up with life, with our kids. Your marriage might be okay because you're distracted with busyness. That's what the devil does, distracts us. But what happens when the kids go out the house, when the kids leave? Now it's just you and your husband that you probably haven't had the time. You've been building your foundation not on Christ, but on your career, on the kids. We become fools when we don't build on Christ, whether you're in single or even marriage. God said, love me. Seek first the kingdom of heaven. That is his formula. So start looking for the one, Christ, before you look for your two. So that's number one, the upward relationship. Love God. What's the second one? You guys said, wait, what's the second one? I can't hear nothing. Love yourself and love others. So point number 2 is work on the me before you search for the we. Work on yourself. Do the inner work first. Love yourself. If I don't love myself, I'm not ready to love others. How can I? Again, this is not my formula. This is God. This is Christ. Love God. Love your neighbor as yourself. Loving your neighbor comes later. Loving others comes, that's like 2B. 2A is to love myself. Look, the Bible, you can search all you want. It will never help you find the right person. It will never help you find the right person. But it will help you become the right person. That's what the Bible is. It's a reflection. It's the mirror. A lot of times, any time that I've talked to a relationship, people, whether it's the boy or the girl, they'll come and they'll say a million things about what he or she's not doing. My first question is always the same. How about you? What are you doing wrong? It's a reflection. How are you becoming the right person? I can't change her or him. I can change myself. That I can control. Again, when Adam, who again represents humanity, when he was created, God put him in a place. He gave him an identity. He gave him a purpose. He gave him responsibilities way before Eve was put in his life. The biggest issue, I said this earlier, we don't have self-awareness. We don't know who we are. We don't know ourselves. We don't know our shortcomings, our character, our values. Do we know what we want? Or is it just an attraction thing? Again, due to whatever that we've went through, people go through hard times. I've heard different stories. Whether it's a trauma experience, your past relationship, your hurts, our upbringing, whether without a mom, without a dad, that affects who we are. But do you know who you are? Do you take the time in your singleness to understand your value? You are the child of God. You are the daughter and son of God, the creator of the universe. St. Paul said, you are God's masterpiece. That is how God designed us. Unfortunately, we can't love other people if you haven't learned to love who God made you to be. Singleness, it's a season, it's a time, it's a gift that God has given you to heal from your past wounds. For you to grow emotionally, establish your values. Instead, what do? We take these hurts, we take these wounds, and we expect our partners to fix them. We think the lies that marriage, relationship, the boy, the girl, they're going to make me happy. Instead of dealing with the trauma that we have, the hurts that we have, the wounds that we have. That's why I say no person can fix only what the great physician can heal. No person can fix only what Christ can heal. Not your faith, not your boyfriend, not your girlfriend, not your wife, not your husband. They're there to help. But there are things that we have to work on ourselves that nobody else can fix other than Christ himself. A relationship isn't going to fix your insecurities. A relationship isn't going to fix your pride, your ego. Sometimes we get into a relationship. The girl, the boy try to tell you how to improve, but we have too much pride. We think we're perfect because we haven't spent enough time in our singleness. Looking at the mirror, how can I get better? A relationship isn't going to fix your temper problem, your anger problem. You can't have a conversation if it doesn't go your way. You don't know how to communicate. You yell, you raise your voice. You don't know how to handle conflict. But we think he can fix me or she can fix me. We have an addiction, whatever that addiction may be. Whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's gambling. We have these addictions, and we think he or she can fix me. So we get into those relationships before working on these things. For example, I had surgery on my left knee in December. And I was in pain a lot. I could barely move I couldn't move my leg. So what I needed to do was go to a physical therapist, a professional that could help me build the muscles back, because I lost all my muscle on my calf. I had surgery, so I couldn't move my leg. I went to a professional. I didn't go to my wife. Now, let me clarify that before I get in trouble. My wife is great. She helped me a lot. She washed all my dishes. She made all my food. I couldn't move. I was on bed rest, you might as well say. She was very supportive. But her job wasn't to heal me. She's not a professional physical therapist. She couldn't help build my muscles. I had to go to a professional. A lot of us, we forget to go to Christ with what Christ can heal. And we expect the boy or girl is going to fix me. So we need to stop thinking that a relationship is going to fix my problem. It's Christ. Whatever your hurts are, whatever your wounds are, whatever trauma that you've experienced, work on those things with Christ in your singleness before you get into a relationship. In the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, yesterday we had a marriage, and we always read the book of Ephesians, chapter 5. It talks about the husband's role. It talks about the wife's role. But you know what St. Paul talks about in that whole chapter? So there's a total of 30-something verses within Ephesians chapter 5. You go to a wedding, they're going to read that verse. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, submit to your husband. And we'll talk about this and what it means later in the week. But St. Paul spends 21 verses talking about what it means to be a man of God, what it means to be a woman of God. And he only spends 11 verses talking about the husband's role and the wife's role. 11 verses of what it means to be a husband, what it means to be a wife. 21 verses talking about a man of God, women of God. Why? Once you become a woman of God, once you become a man of God according to his words, marriage is easy. Marriage is easy. You don't need a lot of instruction because now you are ready for step 3. You've loved God and you've loved yourself. You've worked on yourself. That's why I say success of marriage depends not finding the right person, but on being the right person. Your success of marriage is not about finding the right person. It's not about finding the right person, but it's becoming the right person. I'm telling you, like from the bottom of my heart, the right person at the wrong time is the wrong person. I'll say that again. The right person, the perfect girl, the perfect boy, at the wrong time, you're going to ruin that relationship because you weren't ready. If I met my wife when I was in college or when I started my career, I would have ruined that relationship because I'm completely different. I wasn't in the church. I was completely outside the church. If I would have met her during those days, we wouldn't be married because I was immature. I was all about myself, my career, more money. But it was until I got into the church and you submit your life to Christ and become the right person that God will put the right person in your life. I'll say one last thing on this topic. I have in my note, don't say it, but I'm going to say it. There's a group. I try to not to generalize, all right? So when you do a relationship series, you have no idea how many people have come and gave me like, hey, make sure you include this, or make sure you say this about the guys or the girls. And I try my best not to generalize. Or I try to generalize this, for instance, the guys and the girls. But I'm going to generalize, all right? If this doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. But some people, females specifically, they do such a great job becoming the right person. They work on themselves. Look how many of them have notes compared to the guys. See one guy, Sam. They do a great job preparing for the right person. If you come to liturgy, this side is usually full. This side, maybe we got 4 rows. Women, they work on themselves becoming the right person. They do love God, love themselves, becoming the right person. But they like to take on projects, and we are the projects. Women, sometimes you work on yourself, becoming the right person, but we think, I'll settle for that guy. I'll take on that project because I can fix him. Again, I'm generalizing. Sometimes guys do the same thing. I can fix her. We like to think we can do fixer-uppers on a guy or a girl. We play the role of God. We play the role of the Holy Spirit because I can change him. Yeah, he's this, but I'm 30. I'm 31. The lies that we've been told. We do the right things, but sometimes we settle for less because of the lies that we've been told. We take on a project, and we wonder why our relationships fail, why marriages fail. Think about it. If you have good coffee, right? If you have good coffee, and you put like an expired milk, what happens to that coffee? Is it good? You get a nasty coffee. Some of us here, mostly women, we pursue God. We do the right things. But we get into a nasty relationship. And we say, God, bless this. We settle because of the lies that we've been told. If you think about the story of Abraham and Sarah, Sarah lied. She told Abraham, listen to a lie. Sometimes those lies will come from the closest person in your family. It could be your mom, it could be your dad. It could be a friend. Abraham listened to a lie from Sarah instead of waiting on the promise of God, and it created a mess. And I feel like we do the same thing when we don't wait on the promises of God. Singleness is the most important time of your life. It's a gift from God. It doesn't mean you're alone. It does not mean you're alone. You're alone if you're not pursuing God. So use this time for those of you guys that are single. Maybe I caused a lot of breakups after this, and I apologize. If you're married, you're tied together. There's no getting out of that. But for those of you guys that are single, pursue the one, Christ, before you think about a relationship. Become the right person by loving and working on yourself. If you don't learn to love yourself and who you are, who God made you to be, you don't work on those things, you'll never be ready for your two. I know today, this message may not be for everybody. Some of you were married, in a relationship, engaged. I get it. But maybe our advice to people that we give may change as a result of this. The importance of singleness. So we, as parents, as church leaders, as Christians, let's encourage singleness. When we see somebody that is hurt, when somebody that needs to work on themselves, let's tell them to come to church. Versus, you should date this person that's in the church. Because that person won't fix them. So, again, according to God's formula, let's be content being with God. According to his formula, love God and then loving myself before I think about loving others. Wasalaatu Alexander, glory be to God.